I don't care who you think you are. You're trespassing. Those were the last words Margaret Chen spoke before her entire world imploded. She thought she was protecting corporate property by removing a man in cargo pants from the executive floor. She didn't know that man, Marcus Webb, wasn't just visiting the building. He owned it. What happens when a power-hungry manager arrests her own company's new majority shareholder? In 15 minutes, security was apologizing, employees were filming, and the entire executive team was packing their boxes. This is the story of the meeting that never happened and the justice that arrived faster than a board resolution. The lobby of Meridian Technologies gleamed with the cold perfection of new money. Floor-to-ceiling windows, marble imported from Italy, and a waterfall feature that cost more than most people's annual salary. This was Silicon Alley's crown jewel, a fintech company that processed $40 billion in transactions annually and treated its headquarters like a temple. Marcus Webb pushed through the revolving doors at 8:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. To anyone paying attention, and several people were, he looked wildly out of place. He was 36, black, and dressed like he'd just finished a weekend camping trip. Faded olive cargo pants with visible pockets, a wrinkled gray Henley shirt, and hiking boots that had actual mud on the treads. A worn canvas messenger bag hung across his chest, and his locks were pulled back in a simple tie. He had the posture of someone who'd been traveling for 20 hours straight, which he had. Marcus had just flown in from Nairobi, where he'd been finalizing a microfinance partnership that would bring banking services to 2 million unbanked Kenyans. He hadn't gone home to his apartment in Brooklyn. He'd come straight to Meridian's headquarters for the 9 a.m. emergency board meeting, the one where he'd be introduced as the company's new largest investor and interim CEO. He walked toward the security desk. The guard, a young man named Devin, looked up from his phone. "Morning," Marcus said, fatigue evident in his voice. "Marcus Webb. I'm here for the 9th floor board meeting." Devin scanned his clipboard. "You're not on the list, sir." Marcus pulled out his phone. "My assistant should have sent the clearance yesterday. Let me just..." "Sir, without pre-clearance, you'll need to wait in the visitor area while I call upstairs." Marcus nodded. "Fair enough." He stepped aside and dropped into one of the leather chairs in the waiting area. He closed his eyes for just a moment. The overnight flight was catching up with him. He didn't see Margaret Chen emerge from the elevator bank. Margaret was 52, impeccably dressed in a charcoal pantsuit that screamed authority, and had been Meridian's vice president of corporate operations for 8 years. She was known for 3 things: running a tight ship, tolerating zero nonsense, and an almost pathological adherence to protocol. Her heels clicked against the marble like a countdown timer. She noticed Marcus immediately, a black man in dirty boots, sleeping in her lobby. She marched over to Devin's desk. "Who is that?" she demanded, pointing. Devin looked up. "Says he's here for a meeting on 9. I'm waiting for confirmation from..." "Did you check his ID?" "I was about to." "Devin, this is exactly the kind of lax security I've been warning about." Margaret's voice carried across the lobby. Several employees turning toward the espresso bar paused to watch. "We've had 3 attempted breaches this quarter. Competitors send people to scope out our offices." "Ma'am, he just got here." Margaret was already walking toward Marcus. She stood over him, arms crossed. "Excuse me." Marcus opened his eyes. He saw a woman radiating disapproval. "Can I help you?" he asked. "This lobby is for Meridian employees and verified guests only," Margaret said crisply. "If you're here for a delivery, the loading dock is around back. If you're looking for work, we accept applications online only." Marcus sat up straighter. "I'm not making a delivery. I'm here for a meeting." "A meeting?" Margaret's tone made it clear she didn't believe him. "With whom?" "The board of directors." A beat of silence. Then Margaret laughed, sharp and dismissive. The board meeting is executive level only. C-suite and major shareholders. You're clearly in the wrong building. Marcus felt the familiar heat creeping up his neck. He'd been through this dance before at venture capital firms, at tech conferences, at airport lounges. The assumption that he didn't belong based on a 3-second visual scan. I'm in the right building, Marcus said evenly. My name is Marcus Webb. If you check your... I know every person authorized for that meeting, Margaret interrupted. I organize the board meetings. I've been doing this for 8 years. I know the attendees personally, and I've never seen you before in my life. That's because I just acquired controlling interest in the company 72 hours ago, Marcus said, pulling out his phone. If you'll let me show you the... Margaret held up a hand. Stop. Right there. Do you know what a controlling interest means? We're talking about a $6 billion valuation. You're sitting here in cargo pants and boots with mud on them, telling me you bought this company? Around the lobby, employees had stopped pretending not to watch. Phones were coming out of pockets. This was better than the coffee bar. I'm not claiming anything, Marcus said, his voice hardening slightly. I'm stating a fact. I'm Marcus Webb, managing partner of Webb Ventures. We finalized the acquisition on Sunday night. I'm here for the transition meeting. My assistant, Jennifer, should have sent all the credentials yesterday. Margaret pulled out her tablet and made a show of scrolling through it. Jennifer. Jennifer who? What's her last name? Park. Jennifer Park. I don't see any correspondence from anyone named Jennifer Park. Margaret looked at Devin. Did you receive anything? I just started my shift 20 minutes ago, Devin said nervously. I'd have to check the system. Then check it, Margaret snapped. She turned back to Marcus. Until we can verify your story, you need to wait outside. Outside, Marcus repeated. This is private property. I have the authority to remove unauthorized persons from the premises. Marcus stood up slowly. He was 6 feet 2 inches, and Margaret had to tilt her head back slightly. She didn't flinch, but her hand went to the radio clipped to her belt. Ma'am, Marcus said carefully, I understand you're doing your job, but if you just make one phone call upstairs to Richard Morrow, he's expecting me. This would all be cleared up in 30 seconds. Richard Morrow is the CFO of this company, Margaret said coldly. He doesn't take calls from people who wander in off the street, and the fact that you know his name doesn't impress me. It's on our website. Then call Gerald Steinberg. He's the outgoing CEO. He'll confirm. Mr. Steinberg is in a pre-meeting right now. I'm not disturbing him because you're upset about being asked to follow basic security protocols. Marcus looked at her carefully. Are you asking me to follow protocols? Or are you making an assumption about who I am based on what I'm wearing? The lobby went dead quiet. Margaret's face flushed. I don't appreciate the implication. I treat everyone the same way. If Elon Musk walked in here dressed like a homeless person, I'd ask him for ID too. Then ask me for ID, Marcus said. I showed Devin my phone. I'm happy to provide credentials. What I'm not happy about is being told to leave the building when I have every right to be here. Your rights. Margaret's voice was rising now, and she seemed to realize she had an audience. Good. Witnesses would validate her authority. Let me explain your rights to you. This is a private building owned by a publicly traded company. I am the VP of operations. I decide who stays and who goes. And right now, you are being non-compliant and disruptive. She unclipped her radio. Security, this is Margaret Chin. I need additional personnel in the main lobby immediately. We have a situation. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. You're making a mistake. What I'm making is this building safer, Margaret shot back. In my 8 years here, we've never had a security incident on my watch, and we're not starting today. Margaret, I'm asking you one more time. Please, just call upstairs. One phone call. I'm done asking. Margaret's finger pressed the radio button again. Security, where are you? I need this individual escorted out now. He's becoming aggressive. I'm standing here, Marcus said quietly. How is that aggressive? You're looming over me. You're refusing to leave when asked by a senior executive. That's textbook intimidation. The elevator dinged. 2 more security guards stepped out. Both looked confused about why they were being called to handle a well-dressed woman yelling at a guy who looked like he was waiting for a hiking buddy. Ma'am? One of them said. His name tag read Thompson. This individual is trespassing, Margaret said crisply. He's claiming to be here for an executive meeting but has no valid credentials and is refusing to leave. I need him removed from the building. Thompson looked at Marcus. Sir, is there someone upstairs we can call to verify? Yes, Marcus said immediately. Richard Morrow, CFO, or Gerald Steinberg, CEO, or literally anyone on the board of directors. Thompson looked at Margaret. Should I call Mr. Morrow? No, Margaret said flatly. We don't disturb executives because someone memorized names from our website. We follow protocol. Escort him out. Thompson hesitated. Something felt off. The guy didn't look dangerous. He looked tired, and he wasn't yelling or threatening anyone. But Margaret Chun was a VP, and Thompson was a contractor making $19 an hour. Sir, Thompson said apologetically, I'm going to have to ask you to come with me. Marcus looked at the growing crowd of Meridian employees. He saw their phones out. He saw the mix of discomfort and curiosity on their faces. He could leave. He could call Gerald from outside and have this sorted out in 5 minutes. But something in Margaret's face stopped him. The absolute certainty that she was right. The reflex assumption. The comfort in her authority. No, Marcus said. No. Margaret repeated, her voice sharp with disbelief. I'm not leaving. I have a meeting in. He checked his watch. 9 minutes. I'm going to attend it. Thompson, Margaret said, call NYPD. Tell them we have an individual trespassing and refusing to leave. Tell them it could escalate. Marcus felt his pulse spike. You're calling the police? Because I'm waiting for a meeting? Because you're trespassing and non-compliant, Margaret corrected. And frankly, your attitude is making people uncomfortable. She gestured around the lobby. Several employees quickly looked away, suddenly fascinated by their shoes. Ma'am, Devin spoke up nervously from the security desk. I actually just found the email. There is a Jennifer Park, and she did send credentials for a Marcus Webb yesterday at 6:47 p.m. It's in the system. Margaret whipped around. What? Devin turned his screen. Yeah, it's right here. Marcus Webb, Webb Ventures, cleared for the 9 a.m. board meeting on the 9th floor. I didn't scroll down far enough. I'm sorry. The lobby held its breath. Margaret stared at the screen. Her face went through several colors. Then she turned to Marcus. This could be fake, she said, but her voice had lost its edge. Anyone can send an email. I need to verify this with. With who, Margaret? Marcus asked. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the space like a blade. You've spent 10 minutes telling me you know everything, that you run this building, that you've been here 8 years. But you didn't check the security system. You didn't make a single phone call. You just saw a black man in hiking boots and decided I was a threat. That is not. This has nothing to do with. Margaret was sputtering now. Say it, Marcus said. Say what this is really about. The elevator dinged again. This time, a man in an expensive Navy suit stepped out, moving fast. Richard Morrow, CFO of Meridian Technologies, looked like a man who'd just been told his building was on fire. "Marcus," Richard called out, practically jogging across the lobby. "Thank God. I just got your text. I didn't realize you were." He stopped when he saw the security guards. He saw Margaret. He saw the crowd. "What the hell is going on?" Richard demanded. Margaret's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Richard looked at Thompson. "Why is there security surrounding our new CEO?" The word CEO detonated like a grenade. Thompson's face went pale. Devon actually dropped his clipboard. The employees watching from the espresso bar started frantically typing on their phones. Margaret looked like she'd been struck by lightning. "Mr. Morrow," she finally managed. There was a miscommunication. The system didn't show. I was protecting." "You were protecting?" Richard's voice could have etched glass. "Margaret, do you have any idea what you just did?" He turned to Marcus, his expression shifting to horror. "Marcus, I am so sorry. This is inexcusable. Are you okay? Did anyone touch you?" "I'm fine," Marcus said quietly. "Just tired." "Did she call the police?" Richard asked Thompson. Thompson nodded miserably. "Dispatch is probably sending a unit now." "Cancel it," Richard barked. "Right now. Tell them it was a false alarm." Thompson scrambled for his radio. Richard turned to Margaret. His voice dropped to a deadly calm. "My office. After the board meeting. Don't go anywhere." "Richard, I can explain." "Later." He looked at Marcus. "The board is waiting. Let's go." As Marcus walked toward the elevator, Margaret stood frozen in the center of the lobby. Around her, employees whispered and filmed. Devon was staring at his computer screen like it might provide an escape hatch. Marcus paused at the elevator and looked back at Margaret. "For what it's worth," he said, "you weren't protecting the building. You were protecting your assumptions." The elevator doors closed. The 9th floor of Meridian Technologies was a different world from the lobby. Soft lighting, original artwork, and a conference room that overlooked the Manhattan skyline. Seated around the long table were the 12 members of the board of directors, old money, venture capital, institutional investors. They were used to power. They were power. At the head of the table sat Gerald Steinberg, the outgoing CEO. He was 61, gray-haired, and had the exhausted look of a man who'd been fighting a losing battle for 2 years. Meridian was bleeding cash. Competitors were undercutting them. The stock price was in free fall. Gerald had accepted the buyout from Web Ventures because it was the only option left. "Where is he?" asked Vanessa Cole, a board member representing Pinnacle Capital. "We've been waiting 15 minutes. Traffic probably," said another board member dismissively. "These California tech people have no concept of punctuality." The door opened. Richard Morrow walked in, followed by Marcus Webb. The room went silent. Vanessa Cole actually did a double take. "Is this a joke?" Marcus walked to the empty seat across from Gerald. He set down his messenger bag. He didn't sit. "Good morning," Marcus said. His voice was calm, measured. "I'm Marcus Webb. I apologize for being late. I was detained in your lobby for the last 15 minutes by your VP of Operations, who had me surrounded by security and nearly arrested because she didn't think I looked like someone who belonged here. You could have heard a pin drop." Gerald Steinberg's face went from confused to horrified to furious in about 3 seconds. "Margaret did what?" "She saw a black man in cargo pants," Marcus said evenly, "and decided I was trespassing. She didn't check credentials. She didn't make a phone call. She didn't verify anything. She just assumed." "Marcus," Gerald said, standing up, I don't even know what to say. It's a symptom, Marcus interrupted. He finally sat down. Margaret Chin isn't the problem. She's the result of the problem. He looked around the table. How many people in this room knew I was black before I walked in? No one answered. Anyone? Marcus pressed. Vanessa Cole raised her hand slightly. I saw your LinkedIn photo. And the rest of you? Silence. You didn't check, Marcus said. You saw Web Ventures. You saw the $400 million offer. And you assumed I'd show up in a suit and tie, probably white, probably from a respectable background. He made air quotes with his fingers. You didn't ask. You didn't care. You just cashed the check. One of the board members, an older man named Douglas Frist, cleared his throat. Mr. Webb, I think you're overreacting. What happened downstairs was unfortunate, but Margaret has always been overzealous about security. It's not personal. Marcus turned to him. It's always personal when you're the one being told you don't belong. And here's what's interesting, Douglas. I ran the numbers on Margaret's security protocols last night during my layover. He pulled a folder from his bag and slid it across the table. Richard Morrow opened it, scanned it, and closed his eyes. What is this? Vanessa asked. That, Marcus said, is an internal review of every security incident Margaret Chin has flagged in the last 3 years. There have been 47. 47 times she's had someone removed from this building or denied access. He paused. 39 of them were people of color. That's 83%. In a city where we're supposed to be champions of diversity and inclusion. The room was silent. But here's the kicker, Marcus continued. 12 of those 39 were confirmed employees. People who worked here. She just didn't recognize them, or didn't believe they could work here. So she had them escorted out. Jesus Christ, Geraldo Mutered. This company settled 4 discrimination complaints last year, Marcus said. 4. You paid out a combined $1.2 million to make them go away. It's buried in your legal expenses, categorized as operational settlements. I'm guessing none of you knew that. Vanessa was reading the folder now, her face pale. We approved the legal budget, but not line item detail. Of course not, Marcus said, because Gerald was running this place like a black box. No oversight, no accountability. Just trust the people in charge and hope for the best. He stood up and walked to the window. I didn't buy this company to make money. I have money. I bought this company because you're sitting on technology that could revolutionize financial access for underserved communities. Your transaction processing system could bring banking to 1 billion people who've never had it. But instead, you've spent 5 years optimizing profit margins and cutting costs, and now you're circling the drain. Marcus turned back to the table. Margaret Chin is a symptom of a culture that values appearances over substance, control over innovation, and honestly, most of you are symptoms too. Douglas Frist stood up, his face red. Now wait just a minute. Sit down, Marcus said quietly. Something in his voice made Douglas sit. Here's what's going to happen, Marcus said. In approximately, he checked his watch, 4 minutes. The SEC filing will go public announcing that Web Ventures now owns 67% of Meridian Technologies. I am now the majority shareholder and acting CEO. He walked back to his seat. And my first act as CEO is to ask for resignations from every single person in this room. Chaos erupted. You can't do that. We have contracts. This is insane. Marcus waited for the shouting to die down. You're right. I can't force you to resign. But I can make your lives very, very difficult. I can restructure the board. I can launch investigations into every decision you've made. I can drag this company through the mud until your reputations are worthless. He placed his hands flat on the table. Or you can leave quietly, today, with your severance packages intact, with your dignity, and with a glowing recommendation letter that says you pursued other opportunities. This is blackmail, Vanessa said. This is business, Marcus corrected. You sold me a broken company and called it a gem. You let discrimination fester because you couldn't be bothered to look past the spreadsheets. You failed. And now you get to leave before I dismantle everything you built. Gerald Steinberg, who had been silent, finally spoke. Marcus, you're right. About all of it. This place is toxic. I tried to fix it, but I was too tired, too complicit. I should have done more. He stood up and pulled an envelope from his jacket. I'm resigning. Effective immediately. I'll stay on for 2 weeks to help with the transition, but after that, I'm done. He placed the letter on the table and looked at the others. You should all follow me. He's giving us an out. Take it. One by one, like dominoes, the board members stood. Some signed with anger. Some with resignation. Some with relief. Within 10 minutes, the table was empty except for Marcus, Gerald, and Richard Morrow. Now what? Richard asked. Marcus pulled out his phone and made a call. Jennifer? Yeah, I'm in. Send up the new team. He hung up and looked at Richard. Now we rebuild. But first, we deal with Margaret. Margaret Chin sat in her office, staring at her computer screen. She tried to work. She tried to answer emails. But her hands were shaking too badly to type. She'd pulled up Marcus Webb's Wikipedia page. Founder of Web Ventures. Former Google engineer. Specialization in fintech for emerging markets. Net worth estimated at $800 million. He'd been on the cover of Forbes 3 months ago, and she'd had him surrounded by security. There was a knock on her door. Richard Morrow stepped in, his face grim. Behind him was Marcus Webb. Margaret stood up so fast her chair rolled backward and hit the wall. Mr. Morrow, Mr. Webb, I want to apologize. I made a terrible mistake. I didn't know. Stop, Marcus said. She stopped. Marcus walked to her desk. He picked up a framed photo. Margaret shaking hands with a senator at some gala event. You've worked here 8 years. Yes, sir. You've won awards. Employee of the Year twice. Commendations for efficiency. Yes, sir. And in all that time, did it ever occur to you that your efficiency was just bias dressed up as protocol? Margaret's mouth opened, closed. I treat everyone the same. Marcus set down the photo. No, Margaret. You treat everyone the way you've been conditioned to treat them. People who look like you get the benefit of the doubt. People who don't get interrogated. That's not fair, she whispered. Fair. Marcus repeated. You nearly had me arrested. You humiliated me in front of your entire staff. You made assumptions about who I was based on a 3-second look. And now you want to talk to me about fair. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. I was doing my job. No, Marcus said. You were doing what you thought your job was. And that's the problem. He pulled an envelope from his bag and placed it on her desk. This is your termination letter. Effective immediately. You'll receive 2 weeks severance and a neutral reference. That's more than you deserve, but it's what the lawyers recommend. Margaret stared at the envelope like it was a bomb. You're firing me. Yes. After 8 years. Because of one mistake. Marcus leaned forward, his hands on her desk. Margaret, it wasn't one mistake. It was dozens. I have the files. I have the complaints. I have the settlements. You've been doing this for years. And nobody stopped you because you were effective and efficient and you made the trains run on time. He straightened up. But the thing about trains is they only go where the tracks lead. and your tracks lead straight to discrimination lawsuits and toxic culture. I'm not a racist, Margaret said, her voice breaking. I'm not. Maybe not, Marcus said. But you participated in a racist system, and you never once questioned it. And that's almost worse. He walked to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I don't think you're a bad person. I think you're a product of a bad culture. But I'm not running that culture anymore. Marcus left. Richard Morrow stayed behind. You have 1 hour to clear out your desk. Security will escort you out. Margaret looked up at him, mascara running down her face. Richard, please. I've been here 8 years. I have a mortgage. I have. You should have thought about that before you called the cops on our CEO, Richard said flatly. 1 hour. He left. Margaret sat alone in her office, staring at the termination letter. Outside her window, the city stretched out beneath her. Millions of people, all of them trying to survive, all of them carrying their biases and assumptions like invisible luggage. She'd thought she was one of the good ones. She'd been wrong. 6 months later, Marcus Webb stood on the stage at TechCrunch Disrupt. Behind him, a massive screen showed the Meridian Technologies logo, redesigned, modern, inclusive. When we acquired Meridian, Marcus said to the audience of thousands, the company was dying. Stock price down 60%. Customer trust at an all-time low. Employee morale in the gutter. He advanced the slide. Today, 6 months later, we've launched banking services in 12 underserved markets. We've hired 300 new employees, 70% of them from non-traditional backgrounds. And our stock price is up 140%. Applause filled the auditorium. But the thing I'm most proud of, Marcus continued, isn't the numbers. It's the culture. We fired a board that cared more about control than innovation. We removed managers who valued compliance over compassion. And we built something better. He paused. On my first day as CEO, I was nearly arrested in my own lobby. The VP of operations saw a black man in cargo pants and assumed I was a threat. That moment could have destroyed me. Instead, I used it to rebuild the company from the ground up. Another slide. A diverse group of Meridian employees, smiling. These are the people who make Meridian work. Engineers, customer service reps, security guards. They come from everywhere. They look like everyone. And they're building the future of finance. Marcus smiled. Someone asked me last week if I regret wearing cargo pants that day. If I wish I'd dressed differently, made it easier on myself. He shook his head. I don't regret it for a second. Because if I'd shown up in a suit, I never would have seen the rot. I never would have known how deep the bias ran. Sometimes you have to be willing to be uncomfortable to expose the truth. The crowd rose to its feet. As Marcus walked off stage, his phone buzzed. A text from Richard Morrow. Board meeting in 30. The new one. The good one. Marcus smiled and replied, on my way. Should I change first? Don't you dare. Cargo pants are part of the brand now. Marcus Webb, billionaire CEO, and the man who rebuilt a company by refusing to pretend, headed to his meeting. He kept the cargo pants on. Epilogue. Margaret Chin never worked in corporate operations again. After her termination, she spent 3 months in a fog of denial and anger. Then she started therapy. It took her a year to understand what Marcus had tried to tell her. She'd been complicit, not intentionally cruel, but complicit in a system that judged people before knowing them. She eventually found work at a nonprofit that helped formerly incarcerated people re-enter the workforce. She interviewed hundreds of applicants, people society had written off. Every time she felt herself making an assumption, she stopped. She asked questions instead. It didn't erase what she'd done, but it was a start. The lesson: Power doesn't come from a title or a corner office. It comes from how you treat people when you think no one's watching. Margaret Chin thought she was protecting her company. She was really protecting her biases. Marcus Webb didn't just buy a company. He dismantled a culture that valued appearance over substance. And in the end, karma didn't just catch up. It burned the whole system down and built something better from the ashes. Have you ever witnessed instant karma hit someone who abused their power? Share your story in the comments. And if you believe in leadership that rebuilds instead of just punishes, hit that like button and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Stay humble, stay aware, and always check your assumptions.